The Bible is a living word that reads us as we read it. It's a person, a voice that proves that time is not linear, as one sentence can confirm the past, guide the present, and declare the future. You are here. I am here. He is here. We are here right now. In the tomorrow of yesterday and in the yesterday of tomorrow, I thank you for joining today. So we're back. Thank you so much for joining once again. So, in our last episode, we talked about how Jacob the trickster ended up being tricked in a very big way, how he fell in love with Rachel, and his uncle ended up um, sneaking in Leah, Rachel's sister, into the bridal suite. And how Jacob ended up hooking up with the sister of the woman he was in love with rather than the woman he was in love with. And so we talked about how Jacob worked, he exchanged 14 years of labor in order to be with the woman that he loved, but he was able to actually connect with her after 7 years and a week. So he kind of got a a buy one get one because he he wanted Rachel, but he also got her sister Leah, who he wasn't too fond of. He didn't love her, and so that's where we pick up with in this week. It says that um, the Lord saw, He noticed because He pays attention to every detail of our lives, but He knew that Leah was unloved. He knew that Rachel had the looks and Leah didn't really get that same level of attention. And so, because the Lord knew that Leah was unloved, He allowed her to have children. Whereas Rachel was unable to have children at the time. She was barren, her womb was closed. And so, Leah would sleep with Jacob, and she was knocking out babies left and right. So, first, she had a son named Reuben, and then she had a son named Simeon, and then she had another little boy, and he named him Levi, and all of these little boys, and she's just like one after the other. She's like, all right, this is the one. Like, my husband is gonna have affection for me. This is gonna win over his respect. He's gonna love me. And then she had her fourth son with Jacob, named him Judah, and that's kind of it was a shift with Judah where it wasn't. It was almost like the motive of Judah wasn't to gain Jacob's affection, and so we see which uh, let me just put an insert here because I've known it to happen before where people will have children thinking that the child will produce affection and love in the marriage. And that's unfair to the child. And that's just not how affection works. I don't know. I'm sure there are some exceptions to that rule and that children can be a means in which to allow for connection where there wasn't before. But I definitely discourage the idea of that being a problem solving strategy. Oh, I'm just going to slap a child on this problem and that's going to fix it because it can add to other negative dynamics in the family. But anyhow, do what you want to do with that. It's all good. But Leah had these babies. She had four sons. And then Rachel expressed how jealous she was of Leah and just the fact that Rachel was unable to have children. But Leah was. And so Rachel went to Jacob and she was just like, babe, like, give me children. And Jacob's like, you need to take that up with the Lord. I'm not the one I don't control that. Like, you don't think I want to give you babies? Like, it would be really nice if some of our children could look like you and not your sister. But anyhow, he's like, you need to take that up with the Lord. And so Rachel, which is another, is so interesting because Rachel and Leah both wanted something that the other had. Rachel wanted the ability to have children. Leah wanted the affection that Jacob showed Rachel. And so there's just this discontentment in this dynamic. And so Then they add some more complications to the mix because Rachel's like, "All right, bet I can't have children, but I have this servant, Bilhah. So, babe, you sleep with Bilhah." This is the same stunt that Sarah pulled with Hagar. But she's like, "Babe, you sleep with Bilhah, and then she'll have children, and those children will be my children." And so Jacob's like, "All right, babe." So he slept with Bilhah, and he ended up having a son with her. He actually had 2 sons with her. The first one he had was Dan, and then he ended up having another son with her, and Rachel named him Naphtali. And so 6 sons in, right? Because Leah had 4, Bill had 2, and Rachel still hadn't had any. And so their family is growing exponentially. And so in time, Leah realized like, I'm not popping them out like I used to. She realized like she wasn't having children anymore. So she was like, okay, 2 can play that game. And so she gave her servant Zilpah to Jacob and was like, Jacob, you can, have your way with Zilpah, and then I can have some more children through her. And so Jacob was like, okay. And so he and Zilpah hooked up, and Zilpah actually gave him 2 sons as well. And the first one was named Gad, and the second was named Asher. So 4 from Leah, 2 from Rachel's servant Bilhah, 2 from Leah's servant Zilpah. Right, so we had eight sons right now. So then, in time, Leah's womb was opened again, and she was able to have more sons with Jacob. And so now she knocked out 2 more, Issachar and Zebulon. So we're at 10. And then it said that God remembered Rachel's prayers, and he opened her womb and allowed her to have a son, and she named him Joseph. So after Joseph, when Jacob finally had a son with Rachel, he's like, it's time to go home. Like, he's 11 sons in, and he has a daughter. Leah had a daughter in there somewhere, Dinah. But he's got all these children, and he's just like, okay, cool. It's time. Like, I need to go back to my homeland. Like, I'm ready to go home. And so he goes and he tells his uncle, like, Unc, I've done all this work for you. Like, I've grown my family, and now I'm ready to go back to my father's land. Like, I want to go back home to Canaan. And so Laban is like, all right, cool. I'll let you go. And but he didn't want to give Jacob what he was worth. Laban was like, I know that my wealth wouldn't be wealth in the way that it is if it were not for you and the hard work that you put in. But at the same time, Laban wasn't trying to give him what he was worth. And so the Lord gave Jacob this really strategic idea as to how to secure his own wealth. And Laban was still trying to undercut him. And so it got to the point where Jacob was just like, listen, he talked to Rachel and Leah, and he's like, your pops is just, he's being real trifling. Like, I worked very hard, day and night, hot and cold, just trying to make sure he's good. He's not trying to do right by me, but it's time for us to go. We about to make a move. And so Rachel and Leah were like, it's cool. We'll go wherever you go. Like, because Jacob's like, this dude's changed my wages 10 times. Like, he's just, no matter what he keeps moving the finish line. So no matter what I do, like, he's gonna find a way to try to manipulate his way out of giving me what belongs to me. And so Rachel and Leah were like, we're down to move. Like, it doesn't even matter to us because we're not going to inherit any of his wealth anyway. He's reduced us to the same level of the foreign women. Like, we're not going to get any of it. So we're ready to go when you're ready to go. And so Jacob's like, bet. So he put his wives and his children on camels, and they moved out. But in a sneaky way. They didn't he didn't tell Laban, like, "Oh, we about to go," or anything. They didn't say their goodbyes. They just hit the road. And when Laban found out, he went after them. And um he fell asleep in his pursuit. It was one of those nights he just fell asleep and he had a dream, and God spoke to him in his dream and he's like, "Yo, I know what's on your mind, but don't touch Jacob. Like you keep your hands off of him." And so when Laban did actually catch up to Jacob and his family, Laban's like, "Well, what you doing, man? Like you took my daughters, you took my grandchildren, like you ain't even let me kiss them goodbye. Like what's the deal?" And he's like, I had plans for you, but God talked to me in my sleep. So, I ain't gonna go through with them. But that was real messed up the way you snuck out of here. And Jacob's like, "You not on the up and up. So I feared that you were gonna withhold my family from me. So I had to make a move." So anyway, they made peace with one another, and Laban was like, "Let's just form a treaty right here. Like, let's make an agreement right here, right now." And they like stacked all these stones and stuff. And he's like, this is the boundary line. We're just gonna make this treaty and have this understanding that you'll never cross this line to harm me, and I'll never cross this line to harm you. And they were like, "All right, cool. We can enforce that. That's good with me if it's good with you." And so Jacob, with Leah, Rachel, all of his children, are now on their way back to his homeland. And he has this family, massive family. Let me go back. All of the children that I named, because this is going to be very significant in the coming episodes. But remember, way back when, God spoke to Abraham, who didn't have any children at the time, and said, "I'm going to give you descendants. I'm going to give you children on top of children on top of children on top of them," right? A multitude of descendants, okay? And then Abraham had Isaac, Ishmael, some other sons, but the covenant, the promise lived on through Isaac's bloodline. Isaac then has Jacob and Esau. Jacob ends up tricking his brother out of his birthright and the blessing. So Isaac blessed Jacob and said, "May the blessing of Abraham now live through you." So the same covenant promise that God gave Abraham is now living through Jacob and his descendants. And we just listed 11 of those descendants: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zebulon, and Joseph for now. Okay, so that's significant because all of these men are now who this covenant promise, their descendants are who this covenant promise is going to live through. So very big deal. And so we'll get into more details about that in the next episodes. If the Lord should bless me to record another one. Wonderful talking to you. Until we meet again. Bye for now.